along with their specialized equipment, have been mobilized. The barges with specialized equipment are expected to arrive prior to Christmas. The latest information I have, Minister Dixon, is that linesmen will start arriving here as early as this weekend ahead of the equipment, which we hope will dock sometime late next week into next weekend, latest early in the week of Christmas, and start working immediately. These line workers will be allocated to parishes with catastrophic damage, such as Westmoreland, to accelerate redesign and rebuild efforts. We have already provided power to Savlamar Hospital, the town of Savlamar, Nigwil, and surrounding communities as we continue to expand our rebuild efforts in Westmoreland. We are making arrangements for special accommodations and staging areas for equipment and material in parishes such as Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth to optimize logistics and efficiencies for the rebuild restoration efforts. Let me pause to tell you the level of planning that we are doing. We know that accommodations are short, St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. We know they're not as short, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne. We are looking to get some kind of vessel, whether it's a cruise ship, hotel, whatever you call it, to dock between St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. So those linesmen that are dedicated at that parish will be staying on board and coming off every morning, going to work and coming back every evening. And they will be fed on the road for lunch while they are working, because we realize with Westmoreland at 88%, the travel commute to leave out of the parish and go anywhere else is not going to be as efficient. That's the level of detail. For the other side, we're fine. There's enough rooms and hotel rooms and Airbnb and whatever else. But we know that there's a problem. And we know that there's going to be a lot of the linesmen that are going to be targeted those two specific parishes. So that's why you're going to get the response that you're going to get between Christmas and New Year in those parishes. Also, and this is very important, we're working with the MPs and the municipal corporations to see exactly what they recommend as the priorities for their constituents and their parishioners to make sure that we target what is most effective and efficient for the Christmas season to ease the misery index in those areas. And the commitment that the JPS has made to me, which they have put in writing, all major town centers in all parishes will be restored by Christmas and New Year. It means all of those townships that are not or do not have electricity now will have, and that will be huge in terms of the effect for Christmas and New Year. So you will see the latest numbers in relation to the parishes. As I said before, the major problem that we have is that Westmoreland was the worst affected parish, and therefore they are at the highest number of persons who do not have electricity. So, again, I want to say two things in closing. And this must be specific to trying to get rid of the noise and the miscommunication and all that goes with it. For every time that somebody thinks or criticizes the government for the steps that we are taking, I want those of us who have a comfortable bed to sleep in, some of us with air conditioning, TV, phone service, cable and internet, food in our cupboard and fridges, a business or a job and a salary, a place to go for a drink to get rid of the stress, that there are tens of thousands who don't, and their only wish now would be for a tarpaulin to cover them from rain and sun, and a bottle of water to quench their thirst, and maybe a diaper for their young child. We as a government, we feel your pain, and this is why we have given you the electricity plan that we have given you today. I hear or see two specific MPs in Westmoreland who came to, one went on social media and hit out against the JPS loan, and one in Parliament yesterday who grilled the Minister of Finance about the prudence of this. Yet still, one of them on social media up to recently was crying crocodile tears in one and then fighting against it. I want to leave this with you. As usual, I like to go to my Oxford dictionary. And I Google crocodile tears. Tears are expressions of sorrow that are insincere. The origin, mid-16th century, said to be named from a belief that crocodile wept while devouring or luring their prey. That is the one on social media. The one yesterday that called Recrying Parliament last week. We have a thing called dry cry. I looked it up and it said dry cry meaning in Jamaica. In Jamaican patois, dry cry often refers to pretending to cry or shedding fake tears to gain sympathy, attention, or manipulate a situation. It implies a false sense. It implies a false display of sadness without being genuine. I leave that to the Jamaican people to judge and to say to you as I close, God always knows best. And that is why the Andronis JLP government was chosen to lead this recovery and rebuild process. That's why I'm Minister of Energy working with JPS on early restoration of remaining JPS customers without light. That will be able to do so in a matter of weeks. I want to remind Jamaica that we are 5 weeks into Melissa, and we have restored 82% of JPS customers. First world countries have had less than category 5 and taken 6 months to a year to be able to do so. I want to say again in closing, I stoutly defend the recommendation of the loan to JPS to Cabinet and the approval given rather than an extension of the existing electricity license to JPS. And I have no regrets or apologies, as it's the best option for the people of Jamaica to allow for a return to normalcy in the shortest possible time. The government has done the right thing based on extreme circumstances that the country and the people face at this time, especially with Christmas and New Year's. And as I said a few months ago, I was going to give the people of Jamaica bus after bus after bus. I'm going to give them light after light after light. God bless Jamaica, and we look forward to continuing the work for you, the people.
Thank you, Minister. That was very good. And just note, in Cabinet, we have had extensive discussions on this matter. It is not something that we just decided willy-nilly. We discussed it at every single Cabinet meeting this was discussed. And the key thing for us was people need light. I had a meeting with my principals from the West. JPS was there. And most of the questions were for JPS, when will light come? Jamaicans in the West want light. And that was what we were driven by in Cabinet. How do we get light to the people of Jamaica in the shortest possible time? And we believe quite strongly that was the best thing to do. So Minister Vaz, thank you for your outreach. I know the people of Jamaica, the people in the West, thank you, Minister. All right, we're going to be moving along. As I said, there is PAAC this morning where more of these questions will come. But I now have Commander Gale with us, the head of ODPEM, who will give his update.
Good morning, Minister. Thank you. It has now been 42 days since the all clear has been issued, and while we have made some significant progress, we fully remain focused on the communities and families that are hurting and still in need of support. The National Emergency Operations Center remains activated at level 3, coordinating response, relief, and early recovery efforts across all parishes. First, let me indicate, or speak about rather, the human impact. Hurricane Melissa has been our most consequential disaster. It is deeply regrettable that to date we have recorded 45 confirmed deaths, with 13 persons still missing and an additional 32 deaths under investigation. Our thoughts remain with the families of those we've lost. In the aftermath of the storm, we have also seen 84 suspected and 30 confirmed cases of leptospirosis, with 12 related deaths, 7 of which have been confirmed, as well as 2 cases of tetanus and 1 death. These figures underscore the scale of the human impact and the seriousness with which the ministries, departments, and agencies of government continue to approach the recovery effort. As of last evening, 101 emergency shelters remain open across 7 parishes, housing 1,061 persons. Work continues between the MDAs and partners to identify suitable sites for prefabricated housing and other medium-term options, especially in communities where schools are still being used as shelters, so that normal school life can resume. As mentioned before, the Guyanese Defense Force has deployed to Jamaica to fulfill the promise made by their president to repair some 200 roofs in the parish of Westmoreland. The team commenced work yesterday and is living and working alongside their Jamaica Defense Force counterparts. In partnership with the ODPEM, the JDF also continues to coordinate with regional and international military partners, including Barbados, Bermuda, Rwanda, Ghana, and Ethiopia, arranging for the conduct of similar roofing repair missions across Jamaica. The long-term priority remains clear: safe, resilient housing and durable shelter solutions for those who have lost their homes. Thanks to strong national and international partnerships, we have also been able to mount a strong food and relief distribution operation. To date, the government of Jamaica has distributed just over 340,000 food packages, the ODPEM distributing just over 98,000, while the Jamaica Defense Force, in support of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, just over 242,000 packages to affected households primarily in Western Jamaica. The Food Assistance Working Group, which includes over 30 partners, has enabled the production and delivery of food packages and hot meals to 314,000 persons in some 379 communities. In total, the Food Assistance Working Group has distributed just over 112,000 food kits, affecting 234 lives, while some 3.3 million hot meals have been distributed to approximately 190,000 persons. At the same time, just over 39,000 Jamaica household damage impact and needs assessments have been completed, helping to identify households in need of shelter and livelihood support. This data is also guiding cash grants and voucher programs that will help families to purchase food, building materials, and other essentials as we transition from the emergency phase into the early recovery and self-resilience. Churches and other faith-based institutions, the private sector, and willing Jamaicans continue to provide invaluable food distribution, clothing, and other relief items in the worst-hit parishes. Minister Vaz would have already mentioned the critical restoration of infrastructure and telecommunications. What I'll also indicate is that the National Water Commission had restored over 83% of its customer base. The majority of systems in all parishes are back online, and with the support of the 12 additional water trucks operating in the affected communities, they are able to deliver over 146,000 gallons of water to affected communities. What this has enabled is that over 60% of remittance agencies within the worst affected parishes are operational. In St. Elizabeth, over 69%. In Westmoreland, over 85%. Hanover, 83%. St. James, 67%. And Trelawney, 73%. work continues to restore utilities and critical services. Our health sector remains stable. More than 50% of the health facilities in each parish are operational and supported by 2 field hospitals and multiple international and local medical missions. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, in partnership with PAHO and UNICEF, continue to roll out mobile clinics, mobile pharmacy services, mental health and psychosocial support, and also distribution of wash kits and medical supplies to shelters and affected communities. Environmental health activities are being intensified, including mosquito control and fogging across dozens of communities. We do urge the public to play their part, store water safely, clean up around your premises, and seek medical help early if you develop fever, vomiting, diarrhea, or such symptoms. To date, just over 17,000 contributors have donated funds through the GOJ Hurricane Melissa platform, totaling some 780 million Jamaican dollars. These funds are being used to procure building supplies to assist the Jamaican people. I want to encourage those at home and abroad that if you want to contribute or you wish to contribute, please use the official Support Jamaica platform at supportjamaica.gov.jm. In closing, let me indicate that the road to recovery is long, but Jamaica is moving along at a steady pace from emergency to the early recovery phase into rebuilding. We will affirm that no community will be forgotten. The ODPEM and other local authorities, international partners, the private sector, faith-based and community organizers are united in a single mission to restore lives and livelihood and dignity and to build back better, safer, and stronger. Thank you, and may God continue to bless our island home.
Thank you, Commander, for those updates. And as you heard, he said $800 and something million collected under Support Jamaica. And again, earlier when I spoke to the engineering corps from Guyana, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Rwanda coming in and working with the JDF and fixing roofs, that money that has been donated from locals and those overseas, and especially those in our diaspora, that money is going to go to buy the supplies to fix back those houses. So that money is going to be used to help those that have been most affected and do not have the resources to build back on their own. We're now going to be moving to our Minister of Labor and Social Security, who is here with his team, and we're going to be hearing especially the important thing, assessments. When are the assessors coming? They've done a fantastic job already, and so we're going to hear from him on that and other initiatives in the Ministry of Labor. Please welcome the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. So I will focus on the assessments and also give an update, Minister, on the food-related expenditure as you asked. As it relates to the assessments, let me start by firstly putting in context that for burial, as a nation, we were able to do a little over 19,000 assessments in what would be between 6 to 8 months. We have doubled that amount of assessments in 1 month. And that is, to put in context, the level of upscaling in terms of efficiency, capacity, and focus that we have now, and also lessons learned from the event that we had July of last year. And also to remember that in the first 2 weeks post the Hurricane Melissa, our focus then was distribution. That said, as of December 9th, which would have been yesterday, we have recorded 40,144 household damage assessments completed. We have 544 assessors trained and operating on our platform, and we anticipate to double that amount. Cabinet has approved now the scaling up of household damage assessment submission that was made recently, which will see us having the ministry's integrated assessment acceleration strategy supported by ministries, departments, and agencies that have field capacity to assist us in completing the remaining household damage assessments. And what do we mean by that? What we mean is that the Prime Minister has asked for an all-across government approach, collaborating to make sure that we can get the assessments, even though we have already ramped up, even further ramped up to ensure that we can provide all of the relevant information, accurate data that is that can be relied on and that is credible, to move on to the next phase with regards to providing housing support and other support. So the assessments, as you know, are the foundation of any benefit that is to be provided or deployed to anyone impacted by Melissa. That said, we, in addition to our 544 assessors, have made submissions to increase that amount of persons that can be trained so that we can deploy more persons and, of course, increase the amount of assessments. We have 60 JDF service corps that are assisting 17 JDF officers that are in the West, and we have 30 more from the service corps that should be coming on. We have also 30 additional assessors funded through the World Food Program that are being formally onboarded, and they have begun their operations. We have 20 of our officers from Kingston and St. Andrew, MLSS officers that are stationed now in Mandeville to reinforce the St. Elizabeth deployment. We have 13 officers from St. Mary that are supporting in Trelawney. We have another 13 officers from Portland that are being prepared to join the St. James team. We have liaison officers that have come in from Canada and also in from the US that are supporting the teams also in the West. And in total, that gives us more than 100 additional assessors that will be more of a constant in terms of doing the assessments. And I say this, Minister, because it is to be understood that where you have, for instance, 600 assessors, and many of them being volunteers, you don't anticipate that volunteers will be working 5 days a week. And so we need to expand the numbers of assessors so that in total we can have at least assessments being done by what would be an approximate of 600 persons throughout the weeks. And that will give us a scaling up to take us to the 150,000 assessments that we need done by end of January. That said, we are now negotiating additional support. We are working with the MLSS team in negotiations with the UNDP, who are experienced in this process. They have done a number of deployments across the Caribbean and across the world. Recently, 1,500 of their officers were in Peru. So we are having discussions with them to see if we can get a deployment of UN volunteers to assist. We're also working and having discussions with the various ministries who have in their respective portfolios already started to assign persons that will come into the cadre of assessors to give more constant support. There have been approvals now through this submission to ensure that those officers that are identified across the ministries, departments, and agencies will get the support of their ministry, which is essential in terms of not just identifying assessors, but actually the output, getting the assessments done. What it means is, beyond the numbers, we need persons who can be transported, who can be fed, who can be supported to go through the hills, the nooks, and the crannies. And that's why the support from the ministries, departments, and agencies will be critical in terms of giving us more bodies on the ground and boots on the ground that will be consistent and constant. We intend to have at least 200 teams deployed across the parishes that are our priority parishes: St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, St. James, Hanover, Trelawney, and St. Anne. and those teams will be fitted with supervision from officers of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, as well as our support partners. And the implementation timeline recognizes that we do have several public holidays in December. And so the accelerated assessment surge should see us working throughout December, working into January, and hoping to complete mid-January. I say verification and reporting and completion by the end of January 2026. I want to move, Minister, quickly, because I know time is on you, to just give a very brief update on the food-related expenditure, which I know many persons have been asking about. You would have heard the report already as it relates to the matters regarding the distribution of packages. But let me just indicate that as at the 9th of December 2025, total expenditure related to food procurement under the Hurricane Melissa emergency response amounts to $225.1 million from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Please note that if we were to integrate the food that has been received in terms of donations and also packaged and deployed, that would increase exponentially. But this is what we have procured from the ministry. It includes $52 million spent pre-hurricane in terms of purchases of food that were pre-positioned across the country, and also $173.1 million in post-hurricane expenditure. Finally, I want to advise that the self-reporting mechanism is live. You can go to the ministry's website. I don't know, Minister, if it is also on Support Jamaica. I believe it's also on supportjamaica.gov.jm. And the relevance of this self-reporting, again, is from the lessons that we have learned throughout burial. When our team members go into the communities, inevitably, you will have households that we will seek to advance the assessments, but we're not able to do so because the persons may not be there for good reason. Many persons are now staying with family, and they may not be aware, they may not hear the call or the town crier in terms of being advised of when the assessment will be done. So we have scheduled assessments that are communicated to the relevant persons across the parishes to ensure that persons are aware and that they locate themselves to advance the assessments. And if we do not find you, if for whatever reason we come to your community, to your street, and the assessment is not done, we ask that you utilize the self-reporting mechanism. It notifies us and gives us the opportunity to schedule an assessment with you so that you are not left behind. Again, these are lessons that we learned from the burial experience. Additionally, we have an email that is available for you if you require any further information in relation to assessments, as well as if you find yourself to be capable of joining the assessor's corps. Meaning if you are available, if you have the capacity in terms of transportation, and if you are willing, we are making a call for all who want to assist in this process and are able to and want to be considered to reach out to us at 876-922-8000 to 13. That's 876-922-8000 to 13. And the email is clientcare@mlss.gov.jm. So feel free to send us your information, advise us where you are. Of course, the more support we can get in the West is the better. It reduces the need and the expenses in terms of transportation. And so we make that specific call for anyone who has the time and is willing to put in the effort. This is a collaborative effort that is required across government and throughout private sector. That's the only way that we will achieve our collective goals. I want to just close off by indicating that we recognize that there are still several persons who may feel like no one has come to me yet. We hear those cries. We monitor social media, we monitor the traditional media, and so we are aware of some of the statements that have been made. I want it to be very, very clear that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, working across government with our partners, it is our intention to make sure that no one is left behind, particularly the senior citizens, the persons with disabilities, those vulnerable groups. And so I use this platform to call on all community leaders, civil society, private sector, all who are in and across Jamaica, that if you know anyone who either says or who you can confirm requires support, needs to get an assessment done, and has not been assessed or feels that they have in some way been omitted, please reach out to us. We have been deployed across the country, but even so, from our experiences, we have learned that no matter how far and wide we go, there will be circumstances where persons will be missed, and we need your support to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you. Thank you, Minister.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister, for that. And again, we're calling for all those who can assist to assist. There is a volunteer list on the Support Jamaica site for those who want to volunteer, and the ministry has been going through that list and has been calling people who had volunteered, but we've not really been able to get as many people out of that mechanism. So if you're specifically available to help with assessments, please reach out as the minister has advised, and every ministry is mandated by cabinet to identify individuals to help with the assessments. We're going to do everything we can to make sure the assessments take place very quickly. In terms of the questions that I had from the media, we put ourselves available for them. I don't see them in the room today, though. But I had two questions online. One had to do with JPS, which was answered already by Minister Vaz. And then the other question had been about the food, money spent on food. And you heard it from the minister, 225.1 million from Ministry of Labour. And ODPEM has also spent 80 million. Most of the food spend would come from the Ministry of Labour, though, so you can understand that. And so I think we've dealt with the questions from media that I got specifically sent to me. And we're at 10:01, and I know some had to leave already to get down to PAC. I thought this was a good and productive press briefing. You got some very important information. We're not letting up on JPS, and we are also working really hard to have the assessments done. And so I thank you all, and we will see you again next week. God bless Jamaica, land we love. Thank you all.